of mine at a camp I was at when I was in 8th grade. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
I remembered that experience and talked to him about that. It was just, it was pretty neat to connect.
My goodness.
That's
Wow.
awesome. And then finally, before we get down to business, Chris Wallace, who's a personal friend who works now, I think still for Food for the Poor.
Yeah.
Have known him for, gosh, I've probably known him maybe close to 30 years.
Yeah, good guy.
But great guy.
Yeah.
So how did you get hooked up with all these legends? Do you have your own legend club? What's the
I
deal?
guess so. Yeah, it's just kind of, there's the Fight Club and then there's the Legend Club.
Legend Club.
Sometimes the one and the same.
We've applied to be in the Legends Club several times, but they just keep losing our applications.
Yeah.
I think.
I think 3 or 4 more episodes and you guys will qualify. So.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, you've got something going on, and you and I talked about it via Facebook. It's Digital Capsules. Tell us a little bit about this. Now, I wasn't really sure what it was until I did a little investigating. I think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So tell us about it and what you're doing about it.
Well, when most of us think about time capsules, we think about sci-fi shows from the 50s, or maybe that singing frog in the cartoons that pops out of it.
I love that cartoon.
Classic, absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
But digital time capsules are kind of like the next phase of that, because our entire world is digital. And the challenge is, all of us kind of carry a digital time capsule with us everywhere we go with our phones. But what happens when the phone breaks? And what happens when, if we're storing stuff on Dropbox or Google Drive, at any point those guys could sell out or whatever. And then when you upload stuff to YouTube or Facebook, there are some who owns what issues that sometimes get to be a challenge. And then, of course, the more secular our world gets, the more unfriendly they are to people of faith and their stories. And so all of these pieces kind of come together with, I got connected to a company called Not Forgotten. And they're a digital time capsule company. They're as legit as it gets when it comes to actual time capsules. They're in a partnership with the International Time Capsule Society, which is interestingly based right out of it's either Oglethorpe or Oxford. I think it's Oxford and Covington, Oxford and Emory. And so they were excited to connect with somebody here in Metro Atlanta. And what it is basically you are able to get your story, whatever that may be, and whatever milestone in your life that you want to record one, and record a 30-minute video that can either be self-done or it can be edited by a videographer like myself. And that story gets cataloged and incredible for up to 50, a minimum of 50 years, up to 300 years, depending on the package that you buy. And it's hard to even conceive what 300 years from now will be like. But this has a connectivity to ancestry records. So there's a GEDCOM if you're an ancestry buff, or ancestry.com, those kinds of things. You get a GEDCOM file that you can link to your ancestry records. You get a library card. So your file is actually inserted into WorldCat, which, if you haven't heard, there are 72,000 library databases included on WorldCat from 170 countries. It's basically the Google of library world. And so you record your story. You can get that connectivity to Ancestry and to the library card. It's also preserved by a preservation trust that, regardless of what happens to this particular company, Not Forgotten, there's legal safeguards in place to protect your documents. Your files for up to 300 years through that trust.
Wow.
So the protection is ridiculous. I mean, they've got encryption and safeguarding similar to the Library of Congress and the National Archives. So they're not playing around. And it's just a really neat option to think about. I was just thinking, literally on Monday, my parents moved into assisted living. They're in their mid 80s, and it came time to do that. And, we're pouring through 65 years of marriage in pictures. and newspaper clippings and all of those things. And so there's actually a way to get those files digitized and included into this as well. So it's really cool.
Wow, Jon, man, what made you get into this? This is fascinating. I never would have thought of digitally preserving everything. I mean, other than just pictures, because my wife is very concerned that we're going to lose every picture somehow, some way. So how did you get into this?
Well, it's really crazy. Before the COVID hit, I was just surfing through Facebook like most of us spend a few hours a day doing. And I saw an ad for this company, Not Forgotten, and they were looking for videographers. And I'm always looking for a side gig. And I thought, I'll kick the tires and see what this is about. And I did. And then almost 3 days later, I think COVID happened and everything shut down. And they didn't reach out because, their efforts kind of stalled like everybody else's. And then once we got on the other side, they were able to catch their breath, and they reached out to started really aggressively pursuing other videographers to increase their team. They had done pretty well around the other parts of the globe, but they were now really focusing on the US. And so I went through a pretty extensive training with them, making sure I understood the products and understood the process. And after 3 of those training experiences, I got certified, and I'm the only guy in Metro Atlanta at the moment. And so I'm your huckleberry on that, and look forward to trying to get going. But it just seemed like a really logical and smart thing, because I don't know about you guys, but I have frequently bumped into digital resources I've used on the web before, and I come there and we were purchased or we went bankrupt or we went, it's a pretty volatile space. And so to think that there is something that is literally preserved for 300 years that can be tied to genealogical records, and it's got that much safety and security, it really seemed like a smart idea.
Yeah.
Jon Graham on with us, and we're talking about digital capsules. It's interesting because I read this article this morning. I did find it again here. According to Forbes, clutter-free living is ideal now. It's in vogue. Printed books, photos, albums, records, letters have all gone out of fashion, which means people are just, when I go, my kids don't want all my stuff.
Yeah.
They just want the digital. Because look, in fact, I'm getting them back. I'm keeping it, and they're going to have to go through it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, they're going to be mad at you.
Yeah. And exactly. So this seems like the shape of things to come. So what do they do? How do they get to you?
Well, they can get to me simply by going to my website, grahamcreative.us. There it is on the screen. There's pretty much all you need to know. The very top image, just click on that and it'll take you to a pretty lengthy page all about time capsules and what happens there. It's so perfect for people like my parents who are basically having to downsize considerably, and they've got 65 years of memories that they need to try to figure out what to do with. They can't take in volumes of photo albums. They can't take in all that stuff. So digitize that stuff. But it's also great for churches. Churches that might be celebrating a 50th anniversary or 100th, centennial kind of a celebration, to tell the story, because even organizations can do these things. Businesses, organizations, tell the story of a church, tell the story of a nonprofit of some kind, and then have people that have been key players in that also contribute their stories. It's pretty neat, and there are fundraising opportunities involved as well. I don't know how fast we need to push through the data here, but it's really got there are a lot of awesome opportunities.
Yeah, we got to take a break here in a second. In fact, we're over time, but just real quick. So from what I'm gathering is somebody can put this all together. Can they bring it back on their smartphone, see it anytime they want to?
Yeah, you can access it anytime you need to. You get some really great encryption. You get you can even store this thing on the blockchain for people that are that nerdy and want to know.
You're over my head now.
I mean, it took me a while to get my head wrapped around it too. So
awesome. Well, Jon,
more practical than burying something in the dirt for 30 years or so. And
right.
Digging it up.
No singing frogs, but
no singing frogs. Oh,
but definitely a great tool.
That has got to be one of my favorite episodes.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
Yeah.
Love it.
Classic there. Hey, Jon, we'd love to talk to you again. Thanks for hanging with us. Dan's going to put the website up there again. Check this out. It is grahamcreative.us, and it sounds really cool. Digital time capsules.
One quick note, anybody that sends me an email or connects with me through Facebook or whatever, I will, for $13, you can get $200 worth of restaurant coupons and vouchers.
Ooh.
Just say, hey, tell me more. So
Hey,
right.
there you
Sounds
go.
good. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.